How would anyone know if someone had been coerced?
I think we're talking here about people who are in a heartbreaking situation, and the doctors who've been dealing with them, who've possibly gone through their treatment, through the diagnosis, because they do have to have a terminal diagnosis with an expectation of perhaps 6 months at the most. They will know that person.
Sure.
And they have the medical knowledge, and they are, if you like, trained to deal with people and to read, you know, if they're being blunt, open with them, and judge those. But I think we should remember
no, forgive me.
Sure.
The question is, how would anyone know if someone was being coerced?
That is something that they would hopefully there would be questions. They would examine the person, and I think
they
would do it. But I think one of the things
medical practitioners forgive me, doctors are not trained in coercive control, are they?
No, I appreciate that.
How would they know if someone had been coerced?
What is happening in this is that the impetus for this bill, the impetus for this change in the law, is coming from people who are finding themselves.
Is coming from.
But the reason that I'm saying this is the impetus is coming from people in that position. So people
that's the answer to a different question. I come back to my question: how would anyone know if the patient had been coerced?
If you are with someone who is, as we have all been, who is facing the end of life and who wants to have the choice to end their life, there is a sincerity about what they say. It's a very emotional conversation, and there is something about the way that they approach it, and that's not something that you can say, something that you can go through, I believe, if you're being coerced. And I think that people, the doctors, the medics...
That's extraordinary. If that's your criteria.
No, that's not my criteria.
If they say it in a sincere enough way.
No, that's not my criteria. What I'm saying is the medics, the professionals who deal with people every day, they will be trained in how to do this.
They're not trained in coercive control. I spoke to a GP. They told us that there is no current guidance or training in place.
But when if the law is changed, that is when there will be safeguards put in place.
Hang on. I thought this bill had the strictest safeguards in the world.
It does.
Now you're telling me that there will be further safeguards.
No, sorry, Victoria, what I'm saying is the safeguards are in the bill, and they will
they're
be
not. There's no mention of training.
They will be
medical practitioners
and medical practitioners who are dealing with people, and there have to be the medical practitioner. It will be a very strict examination. It won't be a case of sitting down with someone for 10 minutes. It will be a very serious, in-depth discussions. Okay. There will be psychiatrists involved. If that addresses your point about coercive control, psychiatrists can be involved. There will be examinations. The medical practitioners, who, remember, sign an oath, first do no harm.
Absolutely.
They will take this very seriously and ensure that every possibility is covered.
The patient has to sign 2 forms declaring that they wish to have help in dying. However, if, as the patient, you can't sign your own form, someone else can do it for you. So you can declare to a proxy if you can't sign your own name. Perhaps you can't read, or there's a physical impairment. Are you comfortable with that?
That will be examined by the doctors. Then it has to go to a High Court judge. So all of this will be tested. I wouldn't have put my name to it if I wasn't absolutely convinced that these are the strongest safeguards in the world. They will be tested absolutely, and they will be incredibly tight, because this is for all of us. This is not just a legal question. This is a huge emotional and moral issue that we're addressing.
The bill says that the proxy who signs your name can be someone who's known the patient personally for 2 years, or a person who is of good standing in the community. Good standing in the community, like who?
Well, that would be someone presumably like their GP. That would be someone who was respected, who was perhaps medically trained.
So they have to have a job and have medical qualifications?
It would have to be someone who had good standing in the community. Is someone in this circumstance who would have the reputation is not the word I mean, but who would have the standing in the community, who would have the knowledge of the person, the medical training. It couldn't just be someone who didn't know them. It would have to be someone who knew them.
But you've mentioned medical training, because it doesn't mention that in the bill. It just says a person of good standing in the community.
These are all the things which if it passes its second reading, we will go through in absolute depth in the scrutiny, and the MPs will have time in the committee to check
we'll come back to the time in a
all
minute.
of the wording.
Again, I'm quoting, nothing prevents a registered medical practitioner exercising their professional judgment to decide if and when it is appropriate to discuss the matter with a patient. So a doctor can raise the subject with a patient, can suggest the assisted dying route. Are you comfortable with that?
No, not suggest. They could ask if they felt that the patient wanted to do it.
So they can raise the subject first of all.
I think what we have to remember in this...
Are you comfortable with that?
I am comfortable with what is in the bill, yes. Otherwise, I wouldn't have put my name to it. I wouldn't put my name to something I wasn't comfortable with.
A patient with a terminal illness, a patient with a terminal illness with apparently less than 6 months to live, is in a very, very vulnerable position. A doctor is respected, revered. A doctor raises assisted dying in a conversation. The patient might listen very, very hard to them.
All I can tell you is...
comfortable with that?
I am comfortable that this is based on the strictest possible safeguards. And there are situations we've been talking, this is not something, Nick mentioned the Spirit's done with, this is not something that Kim has come up with overnight, or that any of us have become involved in overnight. But we've spent years listening to people who've been involved in other countries, like Australia. We had one woman who came and spoke to us couple of weeks ago, whose brother had gone through the assisted dying process in Australia, which is the strictest. Sure. And he went through all of this, and it's what we've looked at, and at the end of the day he decided that the time had come when he wanted to exercise the right that he had gained.
We're almost out of time, Chrissy Joddy.
Take his own life, and to have an assisted death. And I think what we have to remember in all of this,
I mean, it is taking your own life, isn't it?
It is, but it is having the choice. Now, Victoria, I don't know what I would do in that circumstance.
I'm not asking you that.